Thank you, Mark and Brian, for joining. I'm Robert from Fuse. We're joined by Mark, of course, who is the CEO of Fuse Network, and Brian, who is a steward over at ICHI, here to discuss the partnership, the integration, the launch of oneFUSE, which went live back in July. So the launch of the first hybrid-backed stablecoin on Fuse Network. So a stablecoin, oneFUSE, which is backed by both Fuse and USDC. Mark, Brian, thank you both for joining.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll jump into intros immediately. Mark, you will be introducing yourself once again, even though we're recording this content for our YouTube channel. It's always good to let the ICHI community know a bit more about yourself, and we'll start with Brian. Brian, if you'd like to start and just give a sort of brief introduction about yourself and how you came to work on ICHI.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm ex-Amazon, ex-IBM. In those organizations, I focused on large-scale network implementations, and I also got IBM to join the Hedera Governing Council. That's a public network, and I guess in those processes, I saw this tension in blockchain where you really needed to have this scarce token for each project to incentivize actions, to drive network security. It could serve any number of purposes in your ecosystem. And the more use cases you could create for that scarce asset, generally the more valuable it would be. But we also saw this tension where as you scaled, it hurt user adoption, creates this friction. They don't understand what it is. The price volatility worries them. As you grow your ecosystem, they can't transact in it for a variety of reasons. They can't pay their expenses predictably or run their business or payroll or taxes. And so we saw it was at the same time this huge enabler, but also this friction point. And so ICHI was created to give each project a branded dollar backed by their scarce asset. And we've been working with projects ever since the launch of our version 2 a couple of months ago to provide them with those branded dollars, and the response has been fantastic.
You're muted.
Thank you. And Mark, if you'd like to give us a brief background of yourself.
Yeah, so started Fuse 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago almost. Before that, I was the co-founder of Colu, and that was building the colored coins protocol on the Bitcoin blockchain. That was before there was a blockchain industry. We called ourselves Bitcoin 2.0. And we were building what today people are calling NFTs and stablecoins, and other stuff that kind of got a name, but in the past they were really part of this class of ideas that what about using a blockchain to represent real world asset, not only purely digital value, but also gold, also art, even a key to a door. We actually had a prototype on the Bitcoin blockchain, how to do like an NFT to get access to places and stuff like that. So Bitcoin wasn't the place for those projects, and everything that happens in the space is exploding in the last I would say since 2015 when Ethereum was released. And for the last 9 years, I've been building building blockchain companies. Before that, I had a company that 20 years ago started a company that was doing e-commerce in Israel. And basically, everything I do is really around payment acceptance and e-commerce, and how to actually bridge the blockchain world to consumers that do real stuff, not necessarily gambling online.
Awesome. I'll give Brian a chance in a second to go into a little bit more detail about how ICHI works exactly. But Mark, could you talk a little bit more about Fuse's mission, and notably in the context of stablecoins and the importance of stablecoins within that ecosystem?
Yeah, so I feel like blockchains and crypto is very similar to, no, maybe it's kind of unique, but it draws resemblance to other open source projects in the past. If you look at Linux, at some point in history, 15, 20 years ago, it was mostly used by developers. You wouldn't see consumers, actually being able to understand it even, but it really democratized a very essential piece of, the tech stack, and released amazing, scalability solutions and growth. And pretty much every consumer in the world right now interacts with Linux. They just don't know it, whether it's on their phones or if they go to Facebook. So we said that this is the process that new technologies, especially when they're like transformative and become like industry standard within a few decades. It takes very, very long time. HTTP had competitors. Nobody remembers that there's HTTP2. People still use the protocol from the 70s to basically run everything online. So those protocols are like, when they're set, they're hard to replace. They become the bedrock of the pipelines of everything, pretty much. And this is the vision of Fuse, that people in the future will use crypto rails, will use blockchains without being blockchain users, like today. Today, if you want to use crypto, you need Ethereum. You need to have like a lot of knowledge, and you need to be, really, really patient and research and go over like multiple tools and go to one site to do lending and another site to do swapping and figure out how MetaMask works and gas. And if you want to do it on mobile, then good luck. There's also a lot of friction there. I would say right now mobile experience is even more complicated on some fronts. So Fuse vision is to say we don't really look to be an Ethereum killer. We build an EVM chain because we felt like Ethereum is kind of like the HTTP of money moving forward. So it's a standard that is big enough to build on top of it. And what we want to build is a Visa competitor, PayPal, Stripe, Square, cash alternative that is not geographically limited, that doesn't charge you 3% for every transaction. And it's not limited only to credit cards or SEPA or ACH. You can actually plug into it cash. You can plug into it Venmo or even WeChat. So I don't know if the Chinese will allow it anytime soon, but theoretically you can plug anything you want. It's an open public protocol. So Fuse is offering no-code tools for non-developers, but also developer tools for non-crypto developers, right? So to build stuff that right now require a lot of heavy lifting, and we want to do the heavy lifting for them. So people can go to the studio, launch a wallet, create a currency. They don't need to build their own stablecoin. They don't need to integrate their own fiat ramp. They don't need to go like in all 50 states and get licensed in the US. Non-custodial and open source financial services are the future, and we want to be, the company that brings this to the mainstream audience.
Awesome. Brian, ICHI has achieved enormous success in the past few months. I see that you've got multiple partners that have joined the ecosystem. If you could just take a step back and describe how it works in general, perhaps talk a little bit more about the process essentially for a scarce token to be used alongside USDC for minting, and then a little bit more about how the DMA works, the organization that the governance works essentially of ICHI.
Okay, you have a lot of topics there. First, I wanted to just build on what Mark was saying, though. His vision for Fuse was what I wanted to build, so I'm a little jealous. Like, I think he's really going after the biggest market for this stuff. But in the process of me thinking about how to make payments with crypto and blockchain and have it be decentralized, I became convinced that you needed something like ICHI. And that's what I'm working on first. So it's actually a really good partnership, because I think at the end of the day, as you get all that consumer adoption, all these businesses paying across borders, you want it to drive value to a scarce commodity, that Fuse token. And that's what ICHI enables. If you drive massive adoption at the expense of driving massive value, it's going to be tough to win. You need to do both. So I think that's where ICHI helps. Now, what I learned in the process is that ICHI's first addressable markets are probably not that. DeFi, layer ones, and marketplace networks. Actually, the marketplace networks, I don't know, Web3 might happen soon, it might not, but DeFi and layer ones are definitely a huge target market segment for us. We've had a lot of interest from a lot of projects. We have this two-part strategy to grow within the Ethereum ecosystem, but also partner outside of it. So that's all been exciting in the last couple of months. As far as the mechanic itself, you're right. When you mint an ICHI stable asset, you pay exactly $1. You know, just like if you mint USDC or USDT, you pay exactly $1. But when you mint an ICHI stable asset, you pay that dollar in two parts. Part USDC and part member crypto. Now, again, this ratio, percent USDC, could be high, close to 100%. It could be a lot lower. The things that make it lower are earning investment returns on the assets backing the stablecoin, and having price appreciation by the asset itself, or if a project makes loans to that wallet backing the stablecoin without minting more. That's a third way. So we have projects taking advantage of all three now. Each project we work with supports their stable asset, and we're very grateful for Fuse for supporting stable Fuse. Now, when you're done with the stable asset, you don't get back, and you want to redeem it, you don't get back any scarce crypto. All you get back is USDC. And we think that's important for regulatory reasons. This basically can function like a wrapped USDC. When you think about the most common experience is somebody just purchasing it on the exchange for $1 and then later selling it back to the exchange for $1. They don't really think about scarce crypto at all in that process. So I think that is one of the strengths of the ICHI model. And it's been, so far so good. People have really responded well to it. Did that cover each of your questions, or is there one more?
Keen to understand more about the role that the ICHI token plays.
Oh yeah, good question.
Governance as well. Yeah.
So there's a split governance model. And it's kind of like if you're a normal bank, that you have the people running the bank, they govern the bank, but they don't govern your bank account. You govern your bank account. ICHI has that same philosophy. So the ICHI governance token governs the Oracle contracts, the investment strategies, the mint masters, who kind of a purpose-built contract within our system, the issuance of additional ICHI rewards, things like that. But it does not decide what to do with the assets backing a project's stable asset. Those funds belong to that project. All the funds backing stable Fuse belong to the Fuse community, not ICHI. Now, that said, you can't just start governing something with 3 or 4 people voting. You have to get some scale. So in the early days, the projects can either govern it with the governance they have in place, or they can enable ICHI's DAO to put kind of default rules in place. But again, the goal is that stablecoin will reach significant circulating volumes, that it will be significantly decentralized, and then at the end of the day, the people holding it will decide what to do with the assets backing it, whether to pay themselves better discounts, fund programs in the Fuse ecosystem, etc.
What are some of the key KPIs that you're focusing on, Brian, with ICHI, in terms of, let's say, liquidity or transactional use and whatnot for the various different stable coins that are being launched?
So to kind of understand that, we have to think through the typical life cycle with a partner. I'll break it into 3 phases. First, there's this initial minting phase, and that stage, the success is reaching the target circulating volume, that it stays stable, and that people can see that is in fact working. It's staying at $1. We think that with all stable assets, you need some history there before people will trust them. The second phase is just really the first use case. How can you implement it in that network? Can you prove that by implementing it, you reversed this drain, this vampire drain on your tokenomics, and instead made it a surplus of token sink? So that kind of first successful use case is important, and then after that, you're really into scaling. How do you make it a first-class citizen so it's just a complementary dollar-denominated asset to the scarce asset? We're in the first phase with most projects. We're beginning to enter the second phase with some of them, and then our other KPI is signing up more and more projects for the first phase.
Awesome. Can any project with a project token launch stablecoins with ICHI? Yes.
You can actually do it in a self-service way in like 15 minutes. It's fine. You just we just find that it's more likely to succeed within that community with closer partnership and collaboration and education. So it's kind of, you could go to the Uniswap factory contract and create a new Uniswap pool, but the Uniswap LPs probably aren't going to all pile into it, right? You'll just have a new pool out there, a new pool contract. It's similar to that. We have our own oneToken factory contract. It's audited by QuantStamp. It's solidified. You could put parameters into it and produce a new stable token contract. But yeah, on your own, you might have trouble getting people to use it.
Okay. Awesome. Keen to understand, unless Mark's got any other comments, we're keen to understand, I suppose, from both of you, both Mark and Brian. We've got questions from some questions that came in from Twitter concerning the future, essentially. What's to come next? There's a growing sort of DeFi and stablecoin ecosystem within Fuse Network. So a question for you, Mark, in particular, but I'm sure Brian will also have comments. What's the difference between oneFUSE and Fuse Dollar, essentially? So Fuse Dollar being the initial stablecoin launched on Fuse Network. What's the difference, and how do we see these two interoperating in the future?
Yeah, so our expertise is less on building stablecoins. So Fuse Dollar is essentially USDC, a wrapped USDC, which is bridged from Ethereum. and using Ramp, which is our Fiat Ramp partner, you can deposit Fuse dollar in 170 countries with almost no fees. The idea was to start like at the very simplistic maybe version that is very easy to implement, very easy to audit, very easy to pass through all the legal compliance stuff. And then the objective was always that Fuse dollar will be backed by a basket of currencies, and also we'll have a family of stable coins, not only dollar. So we see demand also for euros, pounds, especially for our use case. What we envision in the future is that every locality, if it's big enough, it has their own national currency, and that would be like the most frictionless way to onboard users. So it wasn't only about how to create like dollars. It was really about how to facilitate Forex on top of our platform in general. So it's clear that we need something more sophisticated. Also, Fuse dollar didn't affect the bottom line for the Fuse network. Like the more people deposit it, it doesn't drive any demand for the Fuse token. And ICHI's design is much more sophisticated. It has USDC backing, but it also has the Fuse token backing. It requires to effectively stake or lock your Fuse to generate those dollars. So there's some synergy, direct synergy between the tokens, and all the levers, all the dashboards, all the price feeds, all the UI and the audits. ICHI is a great partner for us because this is not our core competency. Our focus is really taking oneFUSE, taking the ICHI stablecoins and deliver a great experience for the consumer. We're kind of like a last mile solution, and this was always our focus. How the consumer will interact with it. And ICHI's expertise is more on the behind the scenes part, which is minting it on mainnet, thinking about the security, thinking about the models, about a strong governance around it, creating trust, building the tools to create trust. Like Brian mentioned, the history is important, showing proof of reserve, showing the stability of it, being able to explain what's under the hood, and scale it. So scaling it means adding more types of currencies, building more features. We're really in stable coins, or I would say DeFi in general. It's like I feel like we're in a plane that building itself while it flies. So we're kind of building the plane while it flies, and we need every company with their domain expertise to pitch in. And in the world of DeFi, this is really the exciting part for me, that companies like us can collaborate, because we're not in a direct competition. We're not building same stuff. On the contrary, we're actually building complementing products. So yeah, you asked, so I'll just answer like briefly on like what to expect from our community. We're going to bridge oneFUSE to our network, to Fuse. We're going to create rewards for providing liquidity for it on Fuse. The next step would be adding oneFUSE inside the Fuse Cash wallet, which was released, like actually this week we released a new earn program there. And we really want, and hopefully until the end of the year, that this earn program will actually be utilizing oneFUSE. And not our old mechanism, which we launched something like, I think it was April or March. So the upgrade for Fuse dollar would be to add ICHI as the underlying asset. And then, pretty much all interactions within the wallet will use ICHI on the backend.
Fantastic. We got a question from one of our community members, Panda Luke, on Twitter, asking about other fiat currencies. It seems that USD or the US dollar sort of dominates in terms of a target asset for most stable coins in the crypto space. So I'm keen to get both of your thoughts on this. First of all, Bryan, to understand what ICHI is, whether ICHI has a strategy to have other currencies like the euro and the pound and whatnot. And then you, Mark, maybe you could elaborate on sort of the importance of this for, how important this is for Fuse. But if we start with Bryan and just understand the role that other currencies play.
Yeah, so with ICHI, we don't have to change anything to support, for instance, a stable fuse against euros, a euro stable fuse. We don't have to do anything differently. You just call that contract with a different collateral address, and that different collateral address. So Fuse token stays, that's part of minting. That other address needs to be a euro fiat backed stablecoin.
So,
Okay.
Sorry.
Are there any being minted, Bryan? Sorry, are there any other? Is that happening right now? And why do you think that? Why do you think that it's mostly US dollar that's being targeted by the different sort of currencies that are creating stablecoins?
Well, dollar is just the global reserve currency right now. And many crypto projects are trying to reach a global audience. I haven't met one that was, for instance, trying to focus on just the Eurozone.
Yeah. The dollar is very important in crypto, but not necessarily because users are using it to buy on Amazon. It's as Bryan said, the reserve currency. Also, 50% of the world population is living under something that is pegged to a dollar or the dollar. So it's a very probably like the most important currency outside of the crypto world. But if we look at the long tail, and the demand, we don't see as much demand to euros, but there is demand for euros. If we look at South America, there's a very nice traction with the real on forgot the name of the stablecoin, but it's actually very, very slowly growing in adoption and volumes. If we look at Asian markets, there's like more and more stablecoins there, and it's really hard to fake traction. If people won't go through the hassle of listing something on a DEX and pay the gas fees on mainnet, and those are actual users and real numbers, and it answers a real need. It's just very, very small if you compare it to other stable coins. There's €2, for instance, euro stable coins that you can already do DeFi with, stake on different networks. There's blockchains that are dedicated for European e-money minting currencies and stuff like that. So we don't not only see the demand, we actually see already projects that are able to capture some market share, but it's really negligible. Like where we're going, we want to introduce payments, and for that, for European citizens, you got to have euros. So you can't really offer something that is equivalent to Visa or PayPal or Square if you don't support the euro. We also see, for instance, one of the biggest charities in the world, or the biggest charity in the world, Caritas, is doing a project in Spain with Wikibank, delivering handouts, euros, to poor people. They used to do it with cash. Now, since the corona, nobody wants to touch cash. They actually had to be their own issuer of euros. And that's very risky. The same goes for, we have a project doing the same thing in Liverpool, was actually funded by the Liverpool government, the local government there, to compete with Deliveroo. And they have an integration to deposit pounds. and they have to do their own minting of those pounds. They actually had to like go on the phone with the FCA, get licensed, get in a sandbox. There's a lot of friction. This is why we need euros on Fuse. Like this was always the plan, to add more types of currencies.
Yeah, I think we can make Fuse Euro in with 4 hours of dev effort. So just
Great.
let us know when you're ready.
So I'll first want to add oneFUSE to our wallet, but that's definitely on the roadmap. I would want to like we're actually getting asked, when it's coming. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's a huge requirement for sure. We'll finish up soon, or short in the next, very shortly. Unless any of you guys have got any sort of final comments.
No, first of all, I'm really happy with the traction recently with oneFUSE. I think it's like a very first type of collaboration for us. Until now, we kind of DIYing it, like we were basically building it ourselves, and we felt like we need some partnerships that we can, leverage from your expertise. We're not focused on building a stablecoin. We're really focused on integrating something that is battle tested and works and have a big community around it, and also fits our use case. And we believe that in the future, consumers will not really know what is DAI or XDAI for that matter, or USDC, any more than they know what is Stripe or when they pay, if it goes through this acquiring company or that API. So consumers don't care, and so there's like a lot of stuff you need to build on top of your stablecoin, like consumer protection, and that's something we're more interested in.
We're definitely seeing more and more specialization in this industry as it develops. I think 3-4 years ago, you could pretty much, if you were working full time in the industry, you had a good understanding of most things that were happening. Whereas now we seem to see it's either you're doing NFTs or you're doing stable coins or you're doing yield farming. Obviously, within the Fuse ecosystem, we're doing a lot, but little by little, what we're seeing is that things are being handed off essentially to partners.
Actually, when we started the colored coins company, we were sure we were competing with pretty much everyone. A few years later, those people are doing real estate, and those people are doing like private blockchains. It's a fallacy to believe that competition is a bad thing.
Yeah. And of course, with the open, with everything being very open source and the ease with which we're able to work with projects, it just shows how quickly, it explains why things are innovating and moving so quickly in this space compared to legacy infrastructure.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff, guys. Thank you both for joining. Bryan, have you got any final comments?
Oh, just thanks for setting this up. Thanks for the time. You can find out more about ICHI at ichi.org. Join us on Telegram, and
awesome.
Go and mint your own stable Fuse. We'll call it that to avoid confusion. Mm-hmm. Again, it's been great working with your team, and I'm a strong believer in your vision.
Excellent. And if someone wants to contact you directly, Bryan, would the best place be in Telegram, in your Telegram group?
Yeah, start with just putting your question in the Telegram. We monitor it pretty well.
Okay, awesome.
Okay,
excellent. Well, thank you both very much, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with ICHI in the future. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you,
everybody. Thanks for
bye.
Bye.